All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our post-trip debrief here. We're doing a live stream, and Nikki is on her way. So just a quick thank you to anyone who's joining in today, and for those who are checking it out later. So this trip was our first family trip there. It's the first time the girls had actually been there. First time Nikki had been in Bogota. She had been in Colombia before. And really, our main goal was to try to work on defining what our role would be and how it was going to fit in ministry-wise. One of the pieces we knew we were going to be helping with was the kind of continent-wide vision, which is to fuel and sustain a biblical movement to reach each country for Christ. So we knew we were going to be helping with that. We knew we were going to have ministry with the girls from the Beehive. But we needed to nail down quite a bit more about that. And actually, a lot of that did happen on this trip. But before we tell you about that, we just want to tell you a little bit about kind of what some of the highlights were. Thank you, Evie. So,
hi everyone. Just one thing too, if you have any comments or any questions, type them in, and we'll try our best to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah. So, Lily and Evie, this is your first time in Colombia, and I just wondered, what was something that you really liked?
I like the girls at the Beehive.
Yeah, the girls at the Beehive. And how many are there right now?
9.
There are 9 girls. How about you, Evie?
I like the girls in the Beehive.
You like the girls at the Beehive, too? Yeah. So
Can you girls tell them one activity that you guys did with them?
We played a game.
You played some games.
Mm-hmm.
We made bracelets and necklaces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was really fun. And what was one name of one of the girls that you especially connected with?
Carolina.
Yeah, she was sweet, too. And then you met a bunch of really nice grown-ups. Who is someone that you are grateful for?
Pastor Limmy.
Yeah, Pastor Limmy. He's pretty great. Yeah. Well, girls, go ahead and go do your thing, and it'll just be Mom and I here. Bye. So, Nikki, this is your first time in Bogota. What was the experience like for you?
Well, it was very similar to being in a big city, and especially just reminded me of a lot of different Latin American cities. And how many million people are there?
Yeah, so Bogota is somewhere between 7 and 8 million, which for a reference point is roughly twice the size of Los Angeles. It's a big city.
Yeah, so lots of traffic and lots of people.
And I drove. We rented a car and I drove, which was something that we wanted to do just to kind of get a sense of what that would be like. Did I freak you out at all, Nikki, driving?
No, it was good. it was better than I imagined.
So just kind of give us an overview real quick, Nikki, of what were some of the main parts of our itinerary?
So we spent a few days in Bogota first, and we just met some of the leaders, and we met with some people that helped lead the girls' home, the Beehive, and we stayed with a wonderful family that they were just great hosts the whole time. And we stayed there through Sunday, went to church service, and then on, I think it was Monday, we went to an area north of Bogota, about 10 miles north, and the whole area is called La Sabana Norte.
Yeah, Sabana Norte, which means
sorry.
The northern savanna, or the northern plains.
Yes. And there's a lot of smaller cities. A lot of people from Bogota have moved out there, or they might work out there, or there's a lot of students that go to school out there. Mm-hmm. So really it's kind of in a way, it's like Bogota is sprawling, and it's, growing into these other communities outside of the city a little bit.
Yeah. So we want to talk a little bit about what we learned from the Lord, and there's just some amazing moments kind of God supernaturally leading us and helping us understand direction and role, what that would look like. But I just wanted to thank you, all of you who have been praying, especially for the girls. So one of the things we asked for was for prayer to find friends. And I sensed that it wasn't like one friend, one great connection. It was more like friends everywhere we went. The four-legged friends, they found a lot of dogs that they enjoyed playing with, and they found friends in the girls of the Beehive, and friends with some great leaders that just really loved on them and invested in them. And so it was to the point that the girls really didn't want to leave and kind of cried a little bit, or felt like crying at least at the end. And so, like, I mean, in a sense, that was a win.
Yeah. I think definitely there's always mixed emotions when you are going into something that God has called you to. It's easy to want to stay where you're at because it's comfortable and it's what you know. But there's also a part of, I think, most people that we feel we want to step into the adventure and into the best, that God is calling us to. So I think, in a way, the Lily and Evie also feel that and kind of feel the mixed emotion of belonging to different places.
Yeah. And I think it was really important for them because imagine a 5 and an 8-year-old before they had seen Colombia with their own eyes. It's sort of hard to imagine, like, what would this be like, this new thing we keep talking about and we know we're moving towards. And so it kind of gave them something specific and tangible to connect to. And speaking of specifics, we want to talk a little bit about some of the specific ways that God showed up in our trip there and helped us define a little bit better understanding of what we're going to be doing. So Nikki mentioned the Sabana Norte, and as we talked with Pastor Libney and a couple other leaders, it really became clear that there's a great opportunity to move into this northern corridor. And so we're going to be most likely joining up with a team of people that are already doing church planting in that part of the outskirts of Bogota. And so there's amazing actually connection here. The folks who are leading this church planting effort came on the radar like just a few weeks ago, in fact, and they're from a neighboring country. I'm not going to say the name for potential security concerns, but a neighboring beleaguered country right next to Colombia. And they're Free Methodists. They've been have long, deep roots, and in fact, there was one really cool surprise that God had in store for us. Nikki, you want to tell a little bit about that?
About Leo? Yeah. So the woman who is leading this church planting initiative, she actually messaged me a few days before our trip to Bogota, and over the course of conversation, we discovered that she remembers our youth group from Spring Arbor Free Methodist Church going to her church where she grew up, and we were about 40 youth that went, and she remembers our group and may not remember me specifically, but it was such a neat connection. She was probably 14 at the time. I was 16. And now just to think that things are coming kind of full circle and that we'll actually be working together in the months and years to come, just was a really neat connection, only something that God, could plan or do over time.
Yeah, so like imagine this, 17 years ago, more or less, Nikki as a teenager was on a short-term team with Spring Arbor in a place where one of the also teenagers would now become our colleagues in this new season, which is just amazing, and it is exciting. So Leo and the team around her, her husband and several others from that same nation, have started this group. It's a new church plant, and it's probably 5 weeks old. something like that, maybe even less. But they already, like their first Sunday, they had 6 people come to know Christ. And so there's just some exciting stuff happening there. And they, what did you think their reception of the idea of us joining them was like?
Very welcoming, very warm. They were very excited, even just to have some more support, and I think too, just to know that people really believed in them and what they're doing, and believed in their capabilities and in their leadership. Because if you think about it, these are people who this is not, Colombia is not their home country. They've been there kind of less than a year, I think.
Some of them.
Some of them less than a year. And so to be able to, for them to
have the support
have
and
the
encouragement.
Support. Yeah, because they're people who didn't choose to almost like be missionaries in another country. They didn't have the privilege like we might have to actually choose that, but they're making the best of it, and God's redeeming the situation and using them. And so I think they are very appreciative of the encouragement and the support as well.
Yeah, right. And we really think that some amazing possibilities are going to be able to take place as we work together. So, I want to paint a picture of what the northern plains of Bogota are like. There's several cities, and they're sizable. A lot of smaller towns that kind of fan out, and it's a growing population hub. Like new universities are being built. A lot of young people are moving to the north, and there's just housing development after housing development. And so to have a strategic presence in that part of the country seems is a really exciting prospect. And Pastor Libney is thrilled that not only the leaders who are already operating, but we as well will be able to team up and under his leadership and vision, move into reaching that neighborhood, not just that neighborhood, that section of the country.
And it really flows well with the whole vision for Latin America, which is, and maybe you've heard this before too, but we just want to repeat it, to fuel and sustain a biblical movement to reach Latin Americans for Christ through training leaders and church planning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said that before you got on camera too. So
we're
did
on
you?
The same page. Well, not everyone may have heard it.
Yeah, but and the other thing is, by the way, if you have questions, feel free to just throw them out there. This isn't a monologue. It's something that we can interact with. Anything you might want to ask about too here. But the exciting thing is the folks who are leading this church planting group in the Northeast, the Sabana Norte, have a lot of experience with what we call PIC, P-I-C, and in English it's community church planting. It's this it's a concept, it's a strategy for making disciples who make disciples, who make disciples, who make disciples, and so on and so forth. And for us, it's a really exciting thing. It's based sort of on 2 Timothy 2:2, where Paul talks about the way that Timothy has learned from him principles that he ought to pass on to faithful people who can pass it on to others. And so the exciting thing, the other part it's based on is Luke 10. And I just want to tell you a quick story about a woman we met who, to me, was a way that God sort of confirmed his presence in this vision with us in one more way. So her name was Alexandra, and she was our Airbnb host. And we stayed 2 nights in an Airbnb just in the part of town we wanted to get to know. So no prior connection. And literally the second day there, as we were walking from the car to the house, she asked what I did, and I said, I'm a pastor. And she quickly wondered if it was a Catholic church or a Pentecostal church or what kind of church. And I said, well, it's the kind of church where we talk about having a relationship with God. And so she said to me, I need you to come and tell me about what that is and what that looks like. And so just a little bit later on that evening, I went over, and she had gathered the whole family, 6, 7 people in the living room, and they just wanted to know, like, what does a relationship with God look like? And the interesting thing is, it parallels what happened there. It parallels this Luke 10 principle where Jesus sends people 2 by 2. They're to go to the towns where he's going to be following up, and they're to look for people of peace, to pronounce peace on the home, which is what I got to do, and then to eat and drink what's put before them. They offered me coffee. We got to drink this together, and then to speak of the kingdom of God. And so I just shared the story of the prodigal son and the difference that it made in his life when he came back to the Father, and that he wasn't alone, and he wasn't helpless, and he wasn't powerless, and he had new identity, and he had the Father's presence, and that's really what a relationship with God looks like. And it's the kind of opportunity that God wanted to offer each of them. And so then, like, there's just a sweet moment, and this is a traveled, well-educated, upper middle class family. They had been to Europe and all over the States and Canada, and they were just listening with this rapt attention and hunger for God. And then the aunt, Alexandra's sister, just with tears in her eyes, said, we have a nephew who lives here, and he's 9 years old, and he has a degenerative joint condition. And I've heard that prayer changes things. I don't know if that's true, but would you pray for him? And so the Luke 10 passage isn't just declare the kingdom, it's pray for the sick. It's heal the sick, actually. And so this little boy came out, and we just had a sweet chance to pray with him and to ask God to do this supernatural work of authenticating the message through this healing. So the little boy's name is Joseph. And I want to ask you to pray for him. Nikki and I sensed that this was a family that was filled with people of peace and could represent not just a receptive group of people, but a new church plant. Sort of like God saying, hey, I'm here, I'm in this, and I'm going to be showing you favor as you trust and follow. Mm-hmm. So she was a great example. That's what this CCP, this peak principle, is all about. And it's that kind of thing that we see ourselves participating in, and that Pastor Livney sees us leading in, is supporting the church planners that are already there working, and seeing new towns and villages reached with the good news about Christ. Mm-hmm. So just real quick, I want to pause. Several people are watching, and again, welcome. If you have a question, you want to just shoot us a comment or say if there's something on your mind you want some clarification on, let us know. If there's some part of the trip you'd like to hear about, welcome to do that. So Nikki, tell them a little bit about the town that we think we might be based out of.
Yeah, so the city that's very strategic in that area is called Chia, and you might think of a chia pet.
Like the pet.
You can remember it that way. And so it's very strategic because it's a up and coming, it's pretty small, I would say. It was very easy to drive through. Mm-hmm. But like Thad said earlier, there's a lot of universities that are being built there, a lot of new housing developments, and so it's really a great place to kind of settle into for us to be able to start church planning, start reaching people there.
Yeah, and relatively small by Bogota standards, but it's still, I think, like 120,000 people. And it's halfway in between the current church plant and the mother church in central Bogota. Mm-hmm. So we're excited about being there. Now that we know kind of a general focus of where we're going to be and some of the role, we get to start thinking about schooling and housing. So I did just get a question from Lee about did we visit the cloud forest? And so the amazing thing, Bogota, Colombia is such a varied country that there's high glaciated mountains, and there are Amazon lowlands, and there's everything in between. And so we had a day to go visit a park, kind of like a national park nearby in the cloud forest, and we saw some night monkeys, which is really cool.
We tried to look for sloths because Lily really wanted to see a sloth, but we didn't have any luck there.
Yeah. And we got to, the girls have been really into horseback riding, and so actually there was a little mishap horseback riding though. What happened, Nikki?
Lily and I fell off a horse, and thank the Lord it was soft ground and we didn't get hurt or anything. But we're going to be a little bit more careful what kinds of horses we ride next time.
So we had a great time there.
And we wanted to give the girls just some more experiences, not just the city, but other things that Columbia has to offer, just so they could also look forward just to all the opportunities there are to enjoy Columbia.
Really wanted it to be a positive experience for the girls, to associate going back to Columbia with some good memories. So, so Karen is asking, is the Beehive near Chia? So that's a really good question. The answer is it's like 10 miles away, but with the traffic, it's quite a ways. It's like an hour and a half on most days. And so that was really a big question, is what does our role look like with the Beehive? And a lot of that is still in flux. We're trying to figure this out. We know that we're going to be involved. It's not too far to be able to drive to Bogota, to the mother church, and whether it's training or worship services or helping with the Beehive. But I think that there are some good questions being asked about how do we take what's happening at the Beehive to the next level and impact even some of the neighborhoods that the girls are from and their families, which we'll share more about this later on. So it's an ongoing thing. But and again, the long-term future of the Beehive, where that will be located, may be changing as we move forward. So still a lot of questions to be answered there. So we really thought we'd probably wrap up around 6:30. And still, if you have questions, bring them on, shoot them our way. But we just wanted to talk a little bit about some of our next steps and some of the prayer requests that we would have, and just ask of our team of supporters. So schooling, Nikki, like schooling and housing, what's our update on that?
Well, for housing, just, be praying with us that the Lord would help us to find, and this is a few months out even, from now, but just once we move there, that the Lord would help us to know where a good place would be to live and something that would work out. And also for schooling, we, most of you probably know, but in case you don't, we've been homeschooling the girls since Lily was in kindergarten. And so we're just praying through, and that has always been through prayer that we have felt God's leading to do that up until now. And we're still praying about homeschooling options or school options. When we were there, we were able to visit one school that I had kind of researched beforehand, and it was a great school. I felt really good about it, and so we're just praying, whether that school or another or homeschooling, just that God would lead us in the right direction with that. And we're just trying to learn more, gather more information at this point.
We did get to visit one school, and it was a really good experience. And just kind of, researching online from several thousand miles away has its limits. And so it was good to be there and to drive through some of the streets and look at schools and look at houses. And but it really came into focus the last few days that Chia would be probably the place that we would be living and ministering out of. And so we had been thinking, some of you have heard the word Tenho, or the place Tenho. We thought that might be sort of our base of operations. And so the shift meant that we needed to start looking at different schools. And cool little thing, like I forgot to mention this, Alexandra, remember the one I was telling about, the person of peace, her brother-in-law is a teacher in Chia. And as we were talking with them, that might actually be an incredible bridge for us. So there are a lot of amazing connections that are continuing to develop. Like we have a member of our church from Tampa, Brian, whose mom lives in Luz Adriana. She lives like 15 minutes from Chia, and may, with her husband, be a key part of this new ministry. So like we already know people in the area, and some of it goes back 15 years with connections from teenage years. And so we're just excited about the way God keeps working. So just prayer requests for everyone to be thinking through with us. And Ricardo, gracias por tus palabras, por tu amor que nos mandas, por tus pensamientos y tu apoyo en oración también. Te queremos mucho. Y a la iglesia de Lota, de ICFA, un abrazo, un saludo. Que Dios les bendiga. So just real quick, as far as some next steps and prayer requests, Sunday we speak at Spring Arbor Church. And Monday I'm speaking at the chapel, like a week from tomorrow, Monday. So we just would ask for your prayers there. We're going to tell some more stories. If you happen to be in the area, we'd love for you to be able to be a part of the weekend and hear what God is doing a little bit more. Partnership building, just continue to pray, if you would, for fundraising. We're like 45%, I think, of the way funded, which is a great start. And we just continue to trust the Lord for the rest of that. If you haven't signed up to be a prayer partner or a financial supporter and you'd like to do that, you can do that. And what's the best way to find that, Nikki? I'm asking you because I always forget the best way to find that.
To find how to support us. Well,
you can go to our rollerscolumbia.com website if you want, or you can go to
the Free Methodist World Missions website, and if you look for the missionaries, there's a whole list of missionaries. You can click on our name, and it will give you options to
pledge or to give. Yeah. And
maybe we can add a link for that too.
We can do that
after the video.
So the other thing is, this is really exciting, but Pastor Libney is really interested in having a couple of teams come down even this summer. And the specific goal of the teams would be to do English camps that are connected to evangelism that would support church planting. And so we can explain more about that, but if spending a week or 10 days in Colombia and teaching English and sharing your testimony and helping folks come to know about the Lord sounds interesting to you, we would love to talk to you. We really want to get a couple teams signed up from churches or from different communities even this year. So let us know about that if you're interested. And guys, I think we're about at our time. Any last questions you want to? We will put the link in the comments.
Thank you, Karen.
And we actually need to talk to you, Karen, about some of your expertise in ministering to children. We want to keep gathering some good thoughts from people as we move forward.
Right.
So appreciate all of you. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon. Blessings.
Bye.